Welcome to MindBank Audios, where every listen makes your mind richer. In a world where wealth is often measured by numbers and bank accounts, this book comes to turn the tables, asserting that true richness doesn't start from the wallet, but from the mind. The Mental Millionaire isn't just a book about accumulating money. It's a mental roadmap toward building a mindset of wealth and summoning success from within you before it manifests externally. The author takes you on a deep intellectual journey, probing the depths of the human psyche and reprogramming your beliefs about money, ambition, and failure. You will realize that the difference between the rich and the poor isn't just in income, but in the idea, in the discipline, and in the unshakable belief in success. This book isn't a theoretical guide, but a practical mental experience that begins with your awareness and ends with changing your destiny. If you have the courage to change your way of thinking, this book might be the gateway that opens the doors to mental and, subsequently, financial wealth. Chapter 1. The Mental Seed of Wealth. The book starts from a central principle. Wealth begins first in the mind, not in the bank account. The author explains that most people view money as a material tool, while in essence, it is a natural result of a specific way of thinking. The wealthy mind is not just associated with financial opportunities, but with a mindset that pushes its owner to seek value, growth, and self-investment before any external investment. The author poses a philosophical question. Do you mentally possess what qualifies you to be wealthy? It answers that the first condition for wealth is a deep inner belief in the possibility of achieving it. It also focuses on the need to overcome the limited mindset that links money to selfishness or evil, emphasizing that money is merely a magnifier of what is inside you. If you are good, money will increase your goodness, and if you are the opposite, it will expose you. Chapter 2. Free yourself from the mindset of incapacity. In this chapter, the author discusses the difference between the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. The scarcity mindset is embodied in the constant fear of losing money, in the feeling that opportunities are few and that success is limited to a small number of people. As for the abundance mindset, it is the belief that the world is full of opportunities and that every person is capable of creating their own path to wealth. The author stresses that a wealthy person doesn't just think about money, but thinks about the value they can offer to the world, in the quality of the service or the idea that can make a difference. He also calls on the reader to reprogram themselves by freeing themselves from negative inheritances about money and work, and by stopping the repetition of phrases like, "money doesn't buy happiness," or "I am not good at financial matters." Because these phrases are not only destructive, but also close the doors to creative and experimental thinking. The author then encourages the adoption of a mindset of calculated risk-taking and self-confidence in the world of finance. Chapter 3. Reshaping the Mental Map for Success. This chapter addresses a profound issue related to the mental map built in our minds since childhood about the concepts of money, success, and wealth. The author points out that every person lives their life according to a pre-existing programming loaded into their mind from an early age, and this programming is often filled with errors, limitations, and negative beliefs that hinder their financial rise. If a person grew up in an environment that doesn't believe in abundance but in the fear of lack, their mind builds mental fortresses that oppose wealth and resist every opportunity that leads to it. In this chapter, the author asks the reader to pause for a moment and reflect on the phrases they heard in their childhood, such as, "the rich do not enter heaven," "money is the dirt of this world," or "hard work doesn't make you rich." Because these phrases are not only destructive, but also close the doors to creative and experimental thinking. The author then encourages the adoption of a mindset of calculated risk-taking and self-confidence in the world of finance.
Chapter 4. Wealth begins with daily behaviors. In this chapter, the author moves from theory to practice, explaining that mental wealth is not complete unless thoughts are translated into tangible actions. He shows that a person doesn't build their wealth through a single deal or a stroke of luck, but through small yet cumulative and effective daily behaviors. He highlights the importance of discipline, time management, a morning routine, and the habits a person builds day by day. He also talks about the gap between those who only think and those who execute, pointing out that successful people don't necessarily have brilliant ideas, but they have the habit of quick and continuous execution. The author encourages the reader to review their day in terms of wasted time and how many hours are spent on browsing, arguing, and engaging in fruitless activities. He suggests a simple technique: setting 3 daily financial or developmental goals and committing to achieving them, even if partially, because repetition creates habit, and habit creates identity. The author notes that most mental millionaires are ordinary people who committed to an extraordinary lifestyle: early rising, daily reading, continuous learning, monitoring spending, and associating with people more ambitious than them. Chapter 5. Your mental environment determines your financial ceiling. In this chapter, the author discusses the power of the surrounding environment and its impact on the individual's subconscious mind, pointing out that while a person is responsible for themselves, they are also greatly affected by those around them. He begins with a famous saying, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with," and explains that this truth applies to everything: your thinking, your income, your ambitions, and even your self-confidence. If you are surrounded by people who complain, justify their failures, fear change, or mock the successful, you are in a suffocating environment that pulls you down even if you have great ideas. Conversely, if you surround yourself with people who think about investment, execute projects, and talk about self-development and opportunities, not problems, your mind begins to open and expand because you unconsciously adopt their way of thinking. The author confirms that a truly wealthy person doesn't stay in circles of mental draining, but creates an environment that enables them to grow. He advises the reader to review their relationships, social media follows, and the ideas they consume daily, as all of them feed their mind with either possibility or incapacity. He also calls for building a mental support team, even online, made up of books, lectures, and positive figures who help them become saturated with a success mindset, no matter how poor or discouraging their current environment may be.
Chapter 6. Money is an internal reflection, not an external result. This chapter begins with a shocking truth. Money is not earned from the outside, but attracted from the inside. In other words, true wealth doesn't start in the bank account, but in the mind, heart, and beliefs. The author presents a central idea. A person who sees themselves as poor on the inside will continue to push money away from their life, even if they get it, because the subconscious mind will sabotage every opportunity that comes its way to align with their self-image. Therefore, sustainable financial transformation doesn't begin with changing a profession or increasing income, but with rewriting the financial identity a person holds in their mind. A person who is mentally wealthy sees money as a means of empowerment, abundance, giving, and expansion, while a person who is mentally poor sees money as a threat, a source of worry, a curse, or a burden. The difference between the two is not in their bank accounts, but in their fundamental outlook. The author invites the reader to redefine money not as a goal, but as a tool, not as something we chase after, but as something we intellectually elevate ourselves to, thus becoming attractive to it. He stresses the importance of reconciling with the idea of worthiness, because many people don't have wealth because deep down they don't believe they deserve it. He suggests a mental exercise where the reader writes down how they see money and their feelings towards it, whether they are feelings of comfort or tension, and then daily repeats the phrase, "I deserve financial abundance because I am ready to handle it with maturity and vision." Chapter 7. The Chemistry of Confidence and the Frequencies of Wealth. This chapter addresses an unconventional angle, the relationship between emotions and the frequencies a person sends out to the universe, which in turn attract or repel money.
The author proposes a theory that self-confidence is not just a psychological state, but a mental frequency capable of creating a new reality. When a person is in a state of doubt, fear, and hesitation, they are practically emitting vibrations that repel opportunities. However, when they are in a state of certainty, confidence, and self-appreciation, they emit a high frequency that harmonizes with abundance. Here the author moves from psychology to what resembles energy physics, pointing out that the human mind is not just a tool for thinking, but a broadcast and reception station for reality. The one who believes they will find a way will find the way, and the one who doubts every step will remain stuck in a spiral of hesitation. The author invites the reader to monitor their internal dialogues, because the phrase you say to yourself is what draws your frequency. He gives a practical example of telling yourself at every obstacle, "I am on my way to abundance," to reprogram the frequency and feed confidence. He stresses that confidence isn't arrogance, but an internal commitment that you have the ability to learn, adapt, and rise, even if you don't have all the tools right now. Chapter 8. Emotional triggers are the fuel for financial launch. This chapter delves into the emotional aspect behind building wealth. He asserts that money is not chased only with the mind, but with the internal drive that ignites passion, which is often an emotion linked to a mission or a deep psychological need they want to overcome positively. The author presents the idea of the sacred emotional trigger, which is that thing that makes you endure failure, delay, and criticism, because you are working for a goal greater than just profit. This drive might be the desire to save a family, build a legacy, break free from the constraints of the past, or achieve a long-delayed childhood dream. The author asks the reader, "Why do you want to become wealthy?" and states that if your answer doesn't have a strong emotional dimension, you will not endure for long in the face of obstacles. He also emphasizes that every person needs an internal fiery engine that drives them to work when there is no immediate reward, because this engine is what distinguishes visionaries from the general public. He recommends dedicating a weekly time to meditate on the purpose and reconnect with the deeper reason behind your desire for wealth, because this connection is the fuel that gives you energy when logic fails you or details exhaust you. Chapter 9. Taming Doubt and Deconstructing Internal Resistance. This chapter addresses one of the most dangerous obstacles that prevent a person from achieving financial success: the hidden psychological resistance that manifests as doubt, procrastination, a feeling of unworthiness, or even disguised self-mockery. The author explains that a person is often not defeated by poverty, but by their internal voice that tells them they are not worthy of wealth. This voice doesn't shout, but whispers in the background, making a person reject opportunities unknowingly, slow down without reason, or choose a path that leads nowhere. He explains that internal resistance cannot be conquered by force, but is dismantled by awareness. When you observe doubt and understand its roots, you can neutralize it. This doubt often arises from early childhood experiences, from an environment that belittled ambition, or established the idea that money is exclusive to a certain group. The author suggests that the reader rewrite their financial beliefs on paper, questioning them, embarrassing them, and dismantling them with one sentence: "Does this idea serve me or restrict me?" He recommends repeating a mental exercise every morning in which a person acknowledges their voice. All resistance within me is an old voice that does not represent my reality now. Today, I choose to be ready for abundance and to live my full potential. Awareness of resistance and naming the feelings of doubt, guilt, and fear is the first step toward freeing the mind from the constraints that prevent it from receiving wealth. Chapter 10. The Laws of Financial Motion and Creating a Momentum of Confidence. In this chapter, the author moves from the internal structure to the dynamic laws that govern the movement of money, energy, and momentum. He suggests that money, like any other energy, does not like stillness. It flows with movement, risk, and decision-making. Those who stand still for fear of making a mistake do not just lose money, they lose the very rhythm of life itself. Therefore, the author insists that the mental millionaire does not seek certainty, but creates momentum. They create an experience and then correct it. They make a decision and then learn from its results. They don't wait for the green light, but turn on the light with their step. According to the author, momentum is the magical factor that accelerates results and breaks mental stagnation. When you move, you see opportunities, meet people, and discover yourself. And when you stay in place, you lose inspiration and doubt everything. Therefore, the author recommends practicing the habit of making a decision daily. Choose something, decide something, move in something. It doesn't matter if it's small. What's important is that something moves inside and outside of you. Momentum is your teacher and guide, because it shows you the path that is not discovered by sitting still. The author believes that money responds to bold movement, to clear intention, and to the person who proves they are capable of enduring and correcting. They don't wait for the perfect plan. Every decision you make, even if it is simple, is a universal declaration that you are ready to receive more, and every hesitation is a postponement of life itself. Chapter 11. Engineering Beliefs and Designing a Mental System Supportive of Wealth. The author opens this chapter with a pivotal statement. Your external world is nothing but a direct reflection of your internal system. This means that money, success, and opportunities do not come from the outside, but from the mental structure in which a person lives daily. He defines beliefs as mental templates that a person holds onto as if they were natural laws, even though they are nothing but conditioned mental inheritances. He explains that a person who believes money is a means of corruption will always find it difficult to keep it, or even to chase it, because their unconscious mind considers it a threat to their values. The author explains the importance of dismantling old financial beliefs and redesigning a new system that is in harmony with the best financial version of the self. He recommends that the reader write down 10 negative beliefs about money on paper, and then review them one by one, asking themselves, am I sure of this? Where did this idea come from? Does it serve me now? He stresses that replacing beliefs doesn't just mean repeating positive phrases, but building a new way of thinking and experiences that prove that money can be a means for growth, good, and freedom. He likens it to reprogramming a mental operating system, because every financial step begins from an invisible mental file. Chapter 12. The Language of Money and Communicating with Opportunities. In this chapter, the author presents money as a language in itself, with its own vocabulary, tone, and way of responding. He believes that rich people aren't very different from us in abilities, but they speak the language of money with awareness. They understand how it moves, what it likes, when to spend, and why to invest, while many people deal with money as a stranger they don't know, fear, or carry negative connotations for. The author believes that the first step to mastering this language is to treat money as a living being with sensitivity, boundaries, and appreciation. Money doesn't like to be spent in fear, hoarded out of stinginess, or dishonored in ignorance. Every time you speak about money negatively or complain about its lack, you are sending a message that repels the energy of abundance. The author suggests building a conscious relationship with money by recording its movements, understanding your expenses, and appreciating its sources. He then moves to a pivotal point. The mental millionaire doesn't chase money, but opens channels that allow it to enter. This is done by taking initiative, serving others, and creating value. Money is not chased, it is attracted. Chapter 13. Financial Identity and a Radical Transformation in Self-Definition. In this chapter, the author discusses a highly important principle. You won't be able to achieve real wealth unless your mental identity changes first. Identity isn't just what you say you are, but what you deeply believe about yourself. If you say you are poor, limited, or not the type of person who succeeds, your mind will work to prove this description, and every project will fail because you don't believe you are the right person for it. The author calls for engineering a new financial identity that begins with saying, I am a person who deserves abundance. I am a financially smart person. I am a person who manages money well. Then support this identity with small, repeated, and consistent actions. You don't need $1 million to be wealthy in your consciousness, but a conscious action for every dollar. Identity is built from the details, how you spend, how you talk about money, how you deal with your bills. Every time you act as the person you want to be, you are getting closer to the true manifestation of your new financial identity. Chapter 14. Time, Money, and the Art of Self-Investment. This chapter focuses on the essential relationship between time and money. The author emphasizes that most people waste time because they don't value it as a greater investment asset than money. A person who manages their time as if they are managing wealth is the one whose achievements multiply even if they start from zero. The author points out that successful people don't work more, they think differently about how to invest their time. They don't spend hours on trivial tasks, but buy others' time, invest in tools that free up their time, and dedicate hours to important decisions, planning, thinking, and learning. He stresses that the biggest investment you can make is not in the stock market, but in yourself, in learning a skill, reading a book, or sitting with someone wiser than you. Every moment you waste on nothing is a moment of cumulative loss that money cannot compensate for. Chapter 15. Financial Behavior and Cumulative Discipline. In this chapter, the author addresses the pillar that distinguishes true wealth from fleeting luck: discipline. Wealth is not the product of a brilliant deal, but the fruit of repeated, conscious, and calculated financial habits. Financial discipline means knowing when to spend, why, on what, and when to say no. It means resisting momentary temptations to gain long-term rewards. It means always saving a portion of your income, even if it's small, and planning for your money rather than waiting for the end of the month. The author describes financial behavior as a muscle that trains and strengthens over time, granting its owner flexibility and intelligence in facing crises. He points out that a disciplined person doesn't follow circumstances, but leads them, and treats money as a tool, not a spoil. He believes that the greatest manifestation of discipline is consistency, doing what is right even when you don't see immediate results. For mental wealth is not built from quick achievement, but from the silent habit that you do not abandon.
Chapter 27. Make pain your ally, not your enemy. This chapter addresses the human relationship with pain and turns the prevailing concept on its head. Instead of avoiding or escaping from pain, the author believes that pain is the greatest teacher, the friend who does not flatter, and the critic who does not lie. He explains how the mental millionaire does not run from difficulties but faces them, learns from them, and extracts lessons that life does not grant in its soft moments. To them, pain is not an end but a beginning. Every failure is a muscle exercise in patience. Every disappointment is a spiritual training in maturity. Every fall is an opportunity to understand the laws of mental gravity. If you make pain your teacher, it will make you a leader. But if you consider it an enemy, it will destroy you. There is no success without suffering, but the difference is that pain can be a knife you use to cut the path or a sword you use to cut yourself. The mental millionaire does not complain, but turns the wound into gold. Chapter 28. Beliefs create or destroy fortunes. Finally, the author delves into the depths of the unconscious beliefs that govern the mind without us being aware of them. The mental millionaire does not start with money, but with ideas. If you believe that the rich are corrupt, you will not become rich even if you work day and night.
If you see success as a threat to your identity, you will sabotage yourself without realizing it. This chapter teaches you to dig up your beliefs, to hold them as an engineer holds building blueprints, and to redraw them anew. Mental wealth begins with an idea, a vision, and internal programming. You must believe that you are worthy, that you are capable, that you are limitless, that success is ethical, and that money is a tool without fault. Everything you own externally is a reflection of what you believe internally. The mental millionaire guards their beliefs as they guard a treasure because they know that the mind is the land for planting. If it is corrupt, the seeds will not bear fruit, even if they are golden. Chapter 29, The Latent Power in Repetition and Patience. In this chapter, the author goes deeper into one of the most neglected principles on the path to mental and financial success, repetition and patience. He asserts that great minds succeed not because of a moment of genius, but because of the ability to practice the quiet discipline and repetition of the same smart behaviors. Mental success is like water drops that carve stone. It's not the first or second strike that makes an impact, but the continuity of repetition that creates deep transformation. The author says your mind works like farmland. You don't harvest from it unless you plant in it continuously, water it with habits, and let it mature under the sun of patience. Many people believe that results should be fast, but the millionaire's mind doesn't demand speed, it demands steadfastness. In this context, the author strongly emphasizes the importance of small daily habits, moments of meditation, writing, observation, mental presence, reading one page, or repeating one positive idea. These practices create new programming in the mind, and over time, the mind becomes capable of transforming from within, where your reactions change, your vision expands, and you become more disciplined in managing yourself. The author also talks about the resistance the mind shows at first toward repetition, especially when quick results don't appear. But he affirms that this resistance is nothing but a sign of an approaching mental breakthrough, as when the mind is on the verge of change, its old resistance intensifies. Patience in those moments is the key to transformation. Mental and financial success doesn't require genius, it requires intelligent stubbornness. The quiet commitment to doing the same smart thing every day until it becomes a habit and until the mind turns into an unstoppable engine. Chapter 30, The Mind Full of Light, The True Conclusion. In this final chapter, the author opens a wide window to the holistic vision of the millionaire's mind, not just as a means of making money, but as a way of living life in the highest states of awareness, maturity, and expansiveness. He asserts that a mind full of light is not a mind that only chases numbers or rewards, but a mind that understands itself, regulates its emotions, directs its attention, and leads its life like a captain steers his ship amidst the waves. Financial success is merely a symptom of a successful mind. The wealthy mind precedes the full wallet, and wallets do not fill unless the mind is full, emotions are regulated, and the vision is clear. In this context, the author mentions that the greatest investment is to become a person who cannot be conquered from within. This doesn't mean you won't suffer or fail, but that you are strong enough to rise every time, learn, and rebuild from within. The book ends with a powerful declaration. True wealth is controlling your mind, not being controlled by it. The idea is not to own everything, but to own yourself first. Money is a tool, but it doesn't know how to act on its own. You, however, have a mind that is the hand that holds this tool. You can either build a world with it or waste your life. Therefore, the author invites the reader to commit to themselves from this chapter to become a permanent project for creating a renewed mind, a mind full of light, a mind that does not ask the world to give it strength, but gives strength to the world from within itself.
Chapter 16, The Power of Deep Focus in Building Mental Wealth. In a world distracted by notifications and digital noise, deep focus becomes a rare currency, and the currency of the truly rich. Millionaire minds are not built on multitasking or superficiality, but on quiet sessions of complete immersion in one project, one idea, one task. The author explains how focus is not a talent, but a mental muscle that grows with practice and discipline. Through phone-free sessions, using the Pomodoro technique, or interruption-free time blocks, a person can summon their genius.
Fortunes are created in moments when you are so engrossed in your work that you lose track of time. This state, which psychologists call flow, is the gateway to creation and what produces ideas that bring millions. The rich don't have more time, they have deeper focus. Chapter 17. The Mind as a Filter, Not a Mirror. One of the biggest shifts in the mental millionaire's mindset is the realization that their mind doesn't reflect reality as it is, but rather selects what aligns with their beliefs. The mentally poor see obstacles because they are programmed to see them. The mentally rich see opportunities in the same situation because their internal programming selects what serves them. The author shows how the brain's reticular activating system, RAS, works as a filter for reality, and that changing thoughts doesn't just change what happens, but what is seen of what happens. The one who sees an opportunity in failure is the one who possesses mental wealth, and the one who sees the end in an obstacle is the one who loses before they begin. Mental programming is the root, and vision is the result, and the result creates reality. Thoughts are created internally first and then reshape what we see externally. Chapter 18. Managing Energy, Not Time. Everyone has 24 hours, but what differs is the type of energy each person carries during those hours. The author opens a new door in thinking. Don't plan your day according to time, but according to your brain and body's energy. Don't put your most complex tasks at the end of the day, but place them when you are at your peak clarity. Take a nap as if it's an investment. Exercise as if it's a production engine. The rich don't work more, they work when they are at their peak focus. Organization isn't a calendar, but the art of timing energies. The author presents daily strategies for managing mental energy, such as getting enough sleep, reducing sugar, having periods of complete disconnection from devices, and protecting the golden hours in the morning. Energy is the real wealth, and managing it is the difference between the person who builds their wealth intelligently and the one who collapses after every small achievement. Chapter 19. The Psychology of Financial Worthiness. This chapter is one of the deepest in the book because money doesn't just come with plans, but with the deep feeling that you are worthy of it. Many people have strategies, skills, and even opportunities, but they sabotage themselves because, deep down, a voice says, "I am not worthy." The author analyzes this feeling through upbringing, social programming, and childhood experiences, and explains how the mentally poor view money as an external thing they have to beg for, while the mentally rich see it as an extension of their self-worth. To have wealth, you must see yourself as someone who deserves it. It's not enough to want money. You must feel you are the person who deals with money with confidence, spends it wisely, and invests it creatively. Worthiness is the psychological root of wealth, and it is the result of repeated ideas about competence, value, and giving.
Chapter 20. From a consumer mind to a producer mind. The mentally poor consume everything: time, money, and information. The mentally rich produce. They don't spend hours watching YouTubers. They create content. They don't waste money buying products. They design a product. This chapter calls for a radical transformation from a consumer mindset to a creator mindset. Production doesn't just mean creating huge projects, but producing value, an idea, advice, a service, or even a useful tweet. The author links this to identity. When you see yourself as a producer of value, you begin to change how you talk, how you read, and how you spend your time. Your life becomes a laboratory for creation, not a warehouse for consumption. This shift doesn't just change your wallet, it redefines your relationship with the world. Chapter 21. Don't be an employee in your mind, be a manager. Mental wealth is not achieved when you follow your thoughts, but when you lead them. In this chapter, the author stresses that most people live in their minds as obedient employees who follow instructions, fear internal criticism, and obey the voice of anxiety and fear. The millionaire mind, however, works as an executive manager who sets a schedule for what needs to be thought about, ignores emotional distractions, and reprograms attention daily. No one is born with an organized mind, but everyone can learn to lead their thoughts. The author explains that techniques like daily journaling, setting aside time for worry, or mindful meditation are all tools used by a manager, not a consumer. The mind's manager doesn't get involved in every notification or drown in every obsession, but prioritizes, eliminates distractions, and leads themselves to what serves their vision. Chapter 23. Money doesn't like mental chaos. Money is a systematic energy, and it hates chaos. This is what the author confirms in one of the most important chapters. Chaotic minds that live on reaction instead of action do not attract money, they repel it. This is because, as the author likens it, money is like a refined guest who does not enter an untidy house. The chaos of thoughts, decisions, and relationships are all signs of a mind that has not yet decided to be an environment that receives wealth. The author begins by detailing the signs of mental chaos: chronic procrastination, contradictory decisions, indulgence in emotional drama, and working without a goal. He then explains how to reorganize the mind through 3 tools: reducing inputs, organizing the mental environment, and continuous simplification. When you reduce your thoughts, deepen your focus, and build simple systems for your life, your mind becomes a magnet for opportunities and wealth. The secret is not in doing more, but in removing the mental clutter that prevents wealth from manifesting. Chapter 24. True wealth starts from within. Someone might have $1 million but not feel peace or contentment, and they continue to strive like someone drinking from seawater. Meanwhile, someone else lives on a limited income but is at peace with themselves, understands their priorities, and lives their freedom. The author here redefines richness. It is not just external abundance, but fundamentally internal abundance. True wealth is not what you own, but what you don't need to feel sufficient. The transformation from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset begins with a simple understanding. You don't chase money to compensate for an internal deficiency, but to express your energy, vision, and creativity. The desire for money is not bad, but it becomes a burden when it is a mask for an internal void. The millionaire mind knows how to balance. They strive, produce, and plan, but inside they are calm, grateful, and at peace with themselves. In this balance between striving and contentment, true wealth, which cannot be taken away, grows. Chapter 24. Emotional intelligence, the origin of mental wealth. In this chapter, the author addresses the core psychological issue that separates the mental millionaire from the average person. It is not money that makes a millionaire, but their ability to manage themselves, their emotions, and their reactions in the face of pressure. He points out that emotional intelligence is the compass that prevents the ship from sinking when it is hit by the winds of anger, frustration, stress, or even sudden success. The wealthy mind doesn't ride the storm, but walks beneath it. It calms itself when the situation is heated, reads its body language and translates it into balanced behavior, and observes others not to judge them, but to understand their motives and react intelligently. True wealth in this chapter is not measured in dollars, but by the ability not to act impulsively, to hold steady in the face of chaos, and to build a wise reaction where others act on primitive instinct. The millionaire mind is not defeated because their anger does not control them. They make cold decisions when the psychological atmosphere is hot. This strength is not innate, but acquired, and it is one of the secrets of the elite. Chapter 25. Don't think like the herd. This chapter warns against the herd mentality, that way in which people slip into group conformity, blind imitation, and chasing intellectual or consumer trends. The millionaire mind is not a follower. They question, ask, object, and innovate. They don't buy stocks because the market is up, but because they have studied, investigated, and found real value. They are not fooled by an advertisement or chase after noise, but listen to their inner voice. This type of thinking requires intellectual courage, to confront the mainstream, to choose an untrodden path, and to bear mockery, rejection, and criticism because you have decided to believe what you see, not what others see. Herd thinking does not create real success. It creates an empty imitation. The independents are the ones who create value. The millionaire mind thinks as if every decision is a long-term investment, not just in money, but in the self, dignity, and mission. Chapter 26. Deliberate practice is the path to excellence.
In this chapter, the author attacks the myth of talent and innate ability and proves that mental, psychological, and financial superiority comes only through intelligent repetition. The difference between an ordinary and an exceptional person is that the latter does not tire of repetition, but masters it until it becomes proficiency, then creativity. The millionaire mind knows that success is not born from a moment of awe, but from mastered boredom. They daily repeat what others are not willing to do. Review, train, evaluate, adjust, and be patient. The author talks about deliberate practice not as a mechanical habit, but as a sacred ritual in which a person summons their whole awareness to make a skill a miracle. Every step has intention, every time has awareness, and every repetition refines the talent until it becomes a sharp sword. Success, then, is not a stroke of luck, but thousands of precise strikes on the rock of weakness until it shatters. The true difference between genius and monotony is that the former is built upon the latter, and the millionaire mind knows how to turn boredom into glory.